And we have Patrick on Basically Brothers today. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, good, good. Day going good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I
Always a
guess
blessed
I
day.
should say morning.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, man. Yeah, so like tell us a little bit about your like your upbringing. Like how was your upbringing?
So, born and raised in Chicago. My upbringing, man. So, my father, I wouldn't, now that I've been through addiction myself
Mhm.
as a kid, I used to think that my dad was an alcoholic. Now, being through it and on the other side, I would say I don't think he was an alcoholic. I just think he had a heavy drinking problem at the time. And yeah, just wasn't the best dad. As a kid, he was very abusive physically. It was kind of, man, it was a real confusing childhood because he wasn't there emotionally at all. He was not emotionally available with himself, with his feelings. There wasn't much cheerleading going on at the house as far as, like upbringing and I love yous and I'm proud of yous. It was a lot of drinking, a lot of physical abuse to me and my older sister. But then he, like, financially provided for the family. He worked super hard. He was able to get us out of a pretty rough neighborhood when I was around 10 into a nicer house, nicer school, stuff like that. And so it was kind of like a mind twist for a kid because one aspect of this area that I needed my father to be, he was not available at all. But then on the other hand, he like provided these things for us. So it was a lot of back and forth. But I want to say overall, I grew up with a lot of resentment towards my father. And my mom, she was just kind of there. She was team dad. So there was not a lot of like standing up for us or making sure we were good. She was just kind of there in the background, didn't have a voice. So I grew up having a little bit of resentment towards her as well. Not as much because kind of like behind the scenes when my dad wasn't around, we had a pretty good relationship and I felt that she understood that things weren't right, but she was kind of caught in the middle of like I don't know what to do. So yeah, that was kind of like, as a younger kid, I grew up with a lot of resentment towards my dad. He robbed me of a lot of my childhoods, a lot of control from him, a lot of summers I was grounded. I wasn't able to go outside. TV was taken away, video games were taken away. I kind of just sat in my room and stared at a wall for like multiple years every summer. And, it just robbed me of my childhood. So definitely a lot of anger and resentment growing up at home.
Yeah, I can definitely relate there, but like I went through the same thing and yeah, my dad grew up drinking and stuff and it was the same thing. My mom just dealt with it, right? And I think that's just because they've been taught that way, right? Growing up from their parents and they just keep following the patterns.
Yeah, there was a point. I haven't spoken to my father in I don't know, I want to say 4, maybe 5 years now. But the last conversation I had with him, I've been sober now. I just celebrated 8 years of sobriety recently last
Wow,
week.
congratulations, man.
Thank you,
That's
brother.
awesome.
About 4 years ago, the last time I spoke to him, we kind of had probably the most honest and emotional conversation we've ever had in our life. I was in my sobriety, I had made my amends, and I was really doing my best to try to rekindle that relationship and work on it. He's just stuck in his ways. He won't ever change. Pride and ego for a lot of people is a big thing. They will die before they admit their own faults. So yeah, we just had an honest conversation and he kind of explained to me like he raised us the way that he was raised and that's all he knew. And it sounds good on paper. It sounds like a great excuse, but I'm just not buying it. I have a daughter now of my own, and I can't imagine me using that excuse. At the end of the day, it's up to us to break the cycle. And,
You're
I had asked
Yep.
him, like, your father raised you that way. Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy your childhood? And he said he didn't. So it's like, what makes you think that continuing that is going to create a healthy relationship between you and your kids? So it just sounds like a cop out. And yeah, that was kind of like the last conversation we had.
Okay, yeah, and that's it, right? It's excuse me, it's the ego and everything that that holds them back. It's like they don't wanna let it go, they'd rather have that ego persona up and think they're gonna be weak, you know? And that's I was that way too, I was like that because I got it taught through my parents as well, so, I didn't, realize until I started having awakening myself, and I totally, realized it's all ego. That's all it
Yep.
is. Yep.
Ego, pride, and it's almost just like finding any way to convince yourself
Mm.
and the other person involved that it was your fault. It's like a form of narcissism.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
our last conversation, it was like, he made multiple comments saying stuff like, "Well, did you ever think that you guys deserved it, or you guys pushed me to the edge?" And it's like, dude, we were like, I was 6 years old, man.
Yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
6-year-old kid. I don't know what's going on, like, so yeah, it's a blessing in disguise having those kind of conversations with people because it finally gives you like the closure that you need to kind of like close that door on certain people in your life. And whether that's your parents or friends or family, like whatever you need to do to protect your mental health and your relationship with yourself, you need to do in this life. Absolutely. It
Of
doesn't matter
course.
who it is.
Yep. That's it, man. I totally agree with you 100%. So, yeah. Was there a moment in life where like everything changed completely for you?
I want to say, looking back on my life, probably the most like significant moment in my life was when I was introduced to drugs, for sure. Piggybacking off of the childhood and my father, I grew up with like this anger inside of me and this void that, like, as a kid, I remember like I used to try to fill that void with like things, whether it was, like I need a skateboard. I need a skateboard. Everyone on the block has a skateboard. I need a skateboard. I would get a skateboard. I would ride it for a few days. And are we allowed to swear on this or not? Not really. Are we allowed to swear on the podcast or not really?
Oh yeah, no, go ahead, bud. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
It's
so
fine.
I would ride the skateboard for a few days, and I'd be like, "Man, fuck this skateboard. I need a bike now." And I'd get a bike and I'd ride it for a few days, and fuck this bike. I need a girlfriend.
Yep.
And like, or as I got even older, 13, 14, I would get summer jobs. I'd get paid, and I need to go to the store. I need to spend this money on and I noticed that I was constantly like chasing materialistic things to fill this void, and it never worked. Like nothing ever filled that void for me. I never felt like I was always on edge. I was always uneasy. I was always restless. And it wasn't until like 15, 16 years old, I was introduced to weed for the first time. And I remember that was the first time where I was like, okay, like I feel cool now. I'm not uncomfortable. It almost was like I'm happy with who I am. And 16, 15, 16, 17, it was mainly just like smoking pot, going to parties, drinking. Wasn't a big drinker, but I did drink. And I want to say at 18, between 15 and 17, the pot got kind of out of control. I was, smoking it, started selling it, got caught at school, was kicked out of school, was sent to treatment multiple times within those 2 years as a way of like being able to come back to school. Treatment never worked. I was a young kid. I had pride and ego as well. I wasn't trying to hear anything. I wasn't open to learning. Around the age of 18, I was introduced to heroin for the first time. And that was like, man, that was it. That gave me a feeling that the pot or alcohol never did. And it was like that was a turning point in my life where I felt like this is my thing. I knew that this would be I wanted it to be a part of my life forever because I finally, that void that I was trying to fill was finally filled. And I had no idea what was in store for me over the next 8 years, almost 10 years of using. But yeah, at 18, being introduced to heroin is probably like where everything changed for me.
Wow, man, that's wild, and that's some serious stuff, man. I mean, I never got to that point. I got to the acid point when I started doing acid, but that was enough for me. I couldn't imagine heroin, man, and wow, like
It's it was a wild ride, man.
no doubt.
There, the first few years, I was, it's crazy because addiction will make you break down every single core value and moral you had in life just step by step. I told myself as a kid, even as a young kid, I would drive by, I lived in kind of a rough part of Chicago, and I would drive by homeless people or like junkies and think to myself like, man, that's crazy. I'll never be someone like that. And at 18, I'm doing heroin and I'm snorting it, for the first few years. And I'm still like in this delusional state of mind of where I'm telling myself like, well, I'm not injecting it, so I'm not as bad as the other guys. I'm just
Yes. Yeah.
And then at like 20, between 20 and 21, I injected for the first time. And now I'm injecting. But even then, I'm still convincing myself that I'm okay because I'm able to maintain jobs here and there. I'm not homeless. I was couch surfing on multiple friends' couches. I had, multiple girlfriends at the time. So it was like I'd stay here for a few weeks, here for a few weeks. So like I was convincing myself that I was still okay, but as like the years went by, everything got worse and worse. I burned bridges, I lost connections, I lost the girlfriends, I lost everything that I owned to my name. And I want to say by the time I was 24, 25, I was like fully homeless, sleeping in tents on, the street, crashing on benches at the parks, sleeping in laundromats. Like I got to the point in my life that I told myself I would never be. And yeah, man,
There and there you were.
heroin, it ultimately doesn't really matter what the substance is because it's all the same disease at the end of the day. But yeah, it stripped me of everything in my life until I had to, I guess, the moment I was introduced to it and then the moment that I finally decided to get sober were both kind of equally as important in my life. The day I decided to get sober was kind of like I had a spiritual awakening, a spiritual moment then and there that I never experienced, that I never was really close with God or any type of spirituality in my life. And yeah, at around like 26, 27 years old, I didn't want to be here anymore at all. I didn't have the balls to really like off myself, but I was slowly trying to just kill myself through the drugs. And there just came a moment one day where like I had a moment of hopelessness. And in that moment, I had this like moment of clarity and a spiritual moment of like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I was put on this earth to do. And it was almost like a movie and my whole life flashed in front of my eyes from like a little kid to my childhood, my teenage years, and everything up until this moment. And it was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, get your shit together because you're gonna die, bro. You're gonna die if you keep doing this. And I told myself that was it, And this is coming from someone that I had $100 a day habit of heroin for 10 years every single day, like every $100 a day. And I got up, found the nearest detox center, went straight to detox, and just God finally put his hand on me and walked me through the entire process and journey. And in the moment, I thought it was a coincidence, but now that I'm able to look back, all those series of events that happened from that moment to detox to treatment and the people and everything, it was such a godly experience and moment, and the people that he put into my life and how everything worked. It was just, yeah, nothing short of God.
Yeah, man, it's crazy that you say that because a lot of the guys that we speak with have these exact same experiences, right? It's like a spiritual experience, and it's like all of a sudden they wake up and they're a whole different person, and they're looking back and they're like, okay, now that this was meant to happen in order for me to be where I am today. It's absolutely amazing.
It's it's required, for sobriety to stick and work, you have to be hopeless. You have to hit that hopelessness. And I tell people all the time, whether it's speaking at treatment centers or through my content, I have parents that reach out to me all the time and they're like, "Hey, my son or my daughter is struggling with XYZ. They're not, what can I do?" And it sucks, but the best advice I can give to anybody or any parent is that if your son or daughter is not convinced that drugs and alcohol are ruining their life, there's only one thing that's going to convince them of that. And it's more drugs and more alcohol. And that is the God honest truth. You can sit there and try to force them to treatment, and you can have family members calling them and crying. it doesn't matter. None of that mattered for me. The tears, the parents, the judges, the probation officers, the jails, the treatments, like none of that mattered until I was convinced. And every time I got locked up or I had to go to treatment or whatever forced me to stop and I had X amount of clean time, I would come out and I would go back to using. But every time I became a little bit more convinced. It was like I had a list in addiction of like, this is going to keep me sober. New girlfriend, new car, moving out of state,
Yeah.
removing these friends, doing this. And every time I was like crossing it off the list. And until I finally got to the bottom of the list and I was like, nothing's gonna I'm done. There's nothing else to try. You know, the only thing that's left to try is sobriety. And that's when it stuck for me.
Yeah. And then that's it. We go chasing after the outside, validation and materialistic things, right? Thinking that's gonna fix us.
Yep, absolutely. And it doesn't, man. It's a disease.
No, exactly.
It's absolutely a disease. And that's kind of like my opening statement with my father is the drinking problem versus addiction. There's a fine line between that. There's people who have the disease of addiction or alcoholism. And then there's people that just have, a heavy drinking or drugging problem. And sometimes fear or being locked up or your parents breaking down may be enough for you to be like, whoa, I need to stop. And they're able to stop off of sheer willpower and, outside circumstances or consequences. For me, it was just never enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly it, man, for sure. What does mental health mean to you, like, personally?
Mental health for me, man, is it's kind of like the relationship that you have with your mind when nobody's around. It's the relationship that you have with your mind. It's how you handle stress, pain, trauma, loneliness, and even things like success. It's I think everyone in life has a voice in their head that tells them certain things. And I think it's kind of like the relationship that you have with that voice in your head. And there's good mental health and then there's bad mental health. And it's kind of like, for years I struggled with mental health, poor mental health, because, the voice in my head would tell me that I was not worthy of good things and I was not worthy of success. And, when you have poor mental health, it kind of like bleeds out into areas of your life of how you treat people, how you love people, how you perceive yourself, what you think of yourself. And so, yeah, to me, mental health is kind of just like the relationship that you have with your mind and what you think about yourself and what that voice in your head tells you every day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Patrick, for sure. That's it, because it's all in the mind, right? It's all up there. So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. What advice would you give men struggling?
Man, put your pride and ego to the side and ask for help. That is kind of like the game changer of mental health. Is bottling it up is the worst thing you can do. And I know in this society, I just made a video about this the other day actually on one of my pages. This society, men are supposed to be this tough figure and suck it up and don't talk about your emotions because if you do, you're labeled weak or soft and it opens up doors for other people to come into your life and it makes you vulnerable and so we are taught to just kind of like put a smile on our face, say we're good even when we're not, and just suck it up. No one cares, work harder. That quote is always thrown around like nobody cares, work harder, but at the end of the day, man, it's not as simple as that. And there's nothing weak about asking for help. It's actually one of the strongest and manliest things you can do in this lifetime because at the end of the day, man, this is your life and you need to do whatever you need to do to become the best version of yourself. And like I said, if you don't ask for help, your mental health not only affects you, it affects how you are as a father. It affects how you are as a friend, as a worker, as an employee, whatever. Because if you don't think highly of yourself, it's going to affect every area of your life. So my biggest thing is like put the pride to the side and ask for help. There's help and resources all over the world for whatever you're struggling with, but you have to ask for that help.
Of course, yeah, it's super, super like beneficial to come out and ask for the help. from, whether it be friends or like what we're doing, basically brothers men's support, and knowing, letting men know that, it's okay to come out and just be yourself and talk and get rid of that old programming that we're all programmed with from such an early age and it's usually our fathers.
Yep, and it's crazy the second you open up and ask for help, it's this overwhelming, like, stress relief and this weight lifted off your shoulder, and once you tap into that resource, you start to realize, like, how you were never alone, and there's so many people that are going through the same thing you're going
Yep.
through, and all it takes is that first step. Like, that's it. Once you break that barrier and you break that ice, it's like it's just the snowball effect after that. It just it becomes so natural and it's like, man, why didn't I do this earlier? But it's that first step that is so tough for so many people. And if you're able to just get over that first step, man, I promise you it'll be so worth it.
Yeah, no, totally, totally agree with you, Patrick, for sure. Why is brotherhood important for men?
Brotherhood, man, it's kind of like going back to what we just talked about is not being alone. It's knowing that you have people in your life that you can count on and they can count on you and understanding that we're going through the same thing. There's people that I met in treatment this last go around when I got sober that are still in my life to this day that I have closer bonds with than people that I grew up with. That camaraderie, especially when you guys share the same struggles, it's such a different type of bond, man, versus like just friends that you grew up with. Knowing that we went through the trenches together with this stuff because mental health, addiction, substance abuse, like it all kind of like ties in. It all goes hand in hand. And it's a battle, bro. It's a daily battle. It's like I made a video about this too. It's like a toxic relationship with an ex-girlfriend. It's like waking
Yeah,
up every
that's
day
so true.
and it's waking up every day and fighting the urge to go back to something that you know is ruining your life, but it still feels like home.
Yes, yes,
And that's like toxic relationships. Like we wake up and we know like this girl's not good for me, man, but it feels comfortable. It feels like home. If it's you've convinced yourself it's love, but it's like that's what mental health is. It's waking up every day and choosing yourself over your thoughts and the voices in your head. And it's like reprogramming yourself all over again. And
yeah,
doing it on your own is impossible. You need a support system. You need brothers in your life that are going to be able to help you with that, and vice versa. You can help them. So it's having a circle even if it's just one person or two people, it's so important to have those people in your life.
super important, man. Yeah, it's like a trauma bond, right?
Absolutely,
That
absolutely.
that's it, man. Absolutely,
Because
that's
most
awesome.
people, most people just don't understand this stuff. Like you know, and it's not even that they don't understand it, but there may be people in your life that you grew up with that are struggling with mental health, but they just ignore it. They don't they don't want to address it. They've convinced themselves, the mind is a very powerful thing, man. It's a
Very
very
powerful.
powerful thing. And you can convince yourself that you're good if you want to, and your whole life may be falling apart. But if you convince yourself that you're good, you're never going to address the things that need to be addressed. And so there's many people that are just walking around this earth. I call them sleepwalkers. They're just sleepwalking, man. They have no clue of what's going on internally. And so yeah, it's kind of like these bonds like that I built with these people in treatment centers that are still sober to this day. I know firsthand how tough this is. Overcoming addiction, overcoming mental health. I know what type of work it requires. So when I have someone in my life that put in the same work, it's like this level of understanding and respect that we have between each other of like, man, I know what you did because I did it. So yeah,
Yes,
it's such a deeper bond than just regular friends.
yes. No, definitely for sure, Patrick. Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't imagine like, growing up in the streets of Chicago. I've always heard crazy things about over there. So
Yeah, Chicago is it's a wild place, man. But it all just kind of boils down to like where you are in life. And I've been sober now 8 years, and I'm fully protected. I'm fully protected by a higher power,
yes.
and it just like I still live in the hood now. I live in the
Yeah,
hood,
yeah.
man, and I live 5 minutes from where I went and bought dope every single day for 10 years, and it's just such a surreal feeling sometimes that this is my life now, and I'm able to wake up and it's like I was reborn with a whole new life.
Yep,
Reborn, reprogrammed, and
yep.
it's almost crazy. There's these moments that I have where when I think back of that, it's like this weird, it's so hard to explain. It almost feels like it never happened. It wasn't real. It was like a different person because the way I am now and my thought process and how I think and move, it's like so hard to grasp the idea that like that used to be me.
Yeah, yeah. I hear
Because
you,
I've
Patrick. I know.
been this new person for so long now that it's yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy what asking for help and just doing the work can do for you in your life, man.
Oh yeah, man. When you do the inner work on yourself and you do the healing, man, it's magical. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's a spiritual awakening, man.
It is. Yes, definitely, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story with us, Patrick. We truly appreciate it. And
Absolutely,
yeah,
brother. Thank you for inviting me on this, and I wish nothing but the best for the podcast and the message.
yes,
It's keep rocking out, man. The world needs to hear this, and
definitely.
people need to know that they're not alone, and that's kind of like the whole purpose of content is to let
That's
people
it.
out there know that they're not alone. And I make my content for people that are on day zero,
Yes,
that have
yes.
no idea of what to do, and they see my page, and hopefully it sparks some type of inspiration to head in the right direction, and that's all we can
It
do,
it
man.
yeah, it definitely is, man, for sure. I mean, this is your path. This is your path now, you know? God has set you on this path to, for other people that are going through challenges as well.
Absolutely, man. So I commend you guys. Keep rocking
Yep.
out. You guys have my
Thank
full
you, man.
support.
You too, man. Absolutely. And, yeah, you have, TikTok. Why don't you give, audience, your handles?
Yeah, so Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, it's all Matera Muscle. So it's Mitera Muscle. If you guys find me on Instagram, I have a link in my bio that will show you guys all my socials. I post multiple times a day across all platforms. If anybody's out there that's struggling with substance abuse, whether it's drugs or alcohol, it doesn't matter. Feel free to reach out in the DM. I do this every day. I help people as much as I can, physically can, whether that's guiding you in the right direction or what certain steps you should take if you're early in sobriety, or even if you have multiple years of sobriety and you're going through some things that you don't know how to manage or handle, man. I do my best. I can't save everyone in the world. I wish I could, man, but I do what I can on a daily basis to help anybody. So yeah, check me guys out, Matera Muscle.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you for having me, and yeah, have a
Yes.
blessed day, brother.